we've all just been like, man, we really that up. Like we had a chance to win, and it was to me it was such a special time. And then by at least my sort of end of my third year, fourth year, it just felt completely different. And there was these small little cracks and small little fractures, and we didn't do the right thing, and we didn't repair them the way we should have, and address them the way we should have.
I thought that was so interesting. I mean, look, Richard, you won a championship on a team that clearly had small cracks and fractures because Kyrie asked for a trade a year later. We know that this happens when guys are just together and on each other every day, especially if they're playing long seasons. What's your reaction, especially, though, to the line of how did that team win a championship?
They didn't even make it to a conference finals, right? And they were up 3-1 at one point in time. My biggest issue with them is that, look, they had injuries. Chris Paul had injuries. Then Blake Griffin had injury. Then they both had injuries.
Yeah.
And then even this year, Blake Griffin out. Chris Paul 2 years ago injured. So, there were some injury years that those guys had. But also, they had so much talent. They had so much ability. But those cracks became, big cracks. And I just think, so it's like, to say that we should have won a championship, you should have made it to a conference finals. Like, you should have just, there's multiple steps that they were far away from before even talking about a championship.
Well, on any championship team, you have to at some point get over yourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, at some point, you have to get past whatever petty stuff is between you. And I think there was always a little jealousy between Chris and Blake, and there wasn't necessarily the trust that they needed to have. Guys like JJ were in the middle of all that, trying to solve it or at least exist within it. And I think championship, you're going to have two stars, and there's always going to be a bit of jealousy or uncomfortableness, or why does this guy get this and I don't get that, right?
Oh,
okay?
yeah, no, I'm with you.
But at some point, you have to get over that.
Well, you do, but understandably, look, Blake was there, and then again, we're not going to talk about the Kevin Durant situation. It's like Chris Paul came in there, and those guys had already been there, and they felt like they were on that path.
Also, by the way, there was a complication with Austin Rivers. It wasn't Austin's fault that he's Doc's son, and by the way, he's been fitting into that locker room in Houston really well. They wanted him back this year, so that tells you everything you need to know. But in the situation in Los Angeles, it just was too complicated with him being the coach's son, that you heard from players like, what's Austin relaying back to his dad? It could have worked. We've seen it work with other families and other times, but it just didn't work this time because, Ramona, you reported on that team so much. It was always a present issue, correct?
Yeah, always. And it was you felt it every time you went in that locker room of, and I know that there's locker rooms where the two-star players don't like each other and they still win. So it's not like you can't win if there is that tension there, but in the Clippers case.
I've never seen that before in Los Angeles.
Ever, right? I mean, it was always there, it was always palpable, and when things went wrong, it was the way people handled it when things went wrong. When they would lose, the accountability wasn't there for
trainers, where there's fights with trainers, where there were injuries, there were things going on at dinner. There was all this drama that was kind of going on that didn't have anything to do with the game of basketball.
Do you know what the headline of all this is? Winning a championship is
hard.
Really
hard. Really hard.
And it's a lot more. Yes, of course, if you have 3 or 4 All-Stars on your team, that puts you way ahead of the game. But it's still hard. There's still so many other factors that come into play.
They had 3 All-Stars.
There you go. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.